You are listening to the Level Up Gaming Podcast, episode 153, a discussion on the D&D movie. In today's episode, we discuss the recent D&D movie. Josh gives a general review of the movie and his thoughts on it. We also discuss lessons that you can take from the movie as a whole. Once again, I'm sorry about the delays in the episodes. We've been releasing every other week currently. The schedule will return to a weekly release after my move at the end of May. Thank you. If you'd like to participate in the discussion or leave us feedback, you can contact us at levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. If you like the content and want to hear more of the show, subscribing will ensure you don't miss an episode. New episodes come out almost every Wednesday. Also, please review, tell a friend about the podcast, or share with your gaming group. Now sit back and enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Level Up Your Gaming Podcast. My name is Aaron, and joining me virtually, I've got Josh. Josh, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I mean, the weather's nice. Finally, been stuck indoors for ages. But,
we had that little blip in like a couple weeks.
Oh yeah, it was awful. It was just like, we got just warm enough. I had you guys over. We grilled out for like 2 days.
It was the amuse-bouche tour of what.
But it went right back to snuggling under a blanket weather. So that worked out really well for me. Got to see a couple movies at the theaters.
Oh yeah. What did you go see? Maybe something topical?
Yeah, totally. I saw Evil Dead Rise. I mean, no, we went and saw, I took the kids and we all went and saw the Dungeons and Dragons movie. Now, this was a little bit ago, but I think we can talk about it now. You've got the new baby and the new house and you're all busy.
Yeah, I'm trying to see
make it to theaters, right?
Trying to see if I can find my way to go see this movie because I haven't seen it. I don't know if it's worth my time. So, like again, two hours. I'm guessing that was about the investment.
Yeah, well, plus driving there and back, acts and dealing with my children. No, I don't think you have to worry about that, Aaron.
Why?
Because they released it digitally, so you can just watch it at home.
Oh, perfect. Well, I'll do that sometime. But I still wanted to make this podcast topical so you can let me know if it's worth my time to go see it. So let's just start with it. Good, bad, mediocre. What were your thoughts?
Well, having watched the Dungeons and Dragons movie from 2002, this one was quite a bit of an improvement. It actually was really good. I enjoyed it a lot. The kids had a good time. My wife had a good time. And while she does play D&D, she's not like a big fan or like really into the lore. So it was nice to see her like getting into the movie and enjoying it. You don't have to be a dungeon master. You don't have to be a regular player to really enjoy this. You don't even have to, be into Dungeons and Dragons if you are into tabletop, because it really does a lot of things that we've talked about in this podcast, and it does a lot of things well in the genre. And I thought it was pretty entertaining that way.
Do you feel like one of the things I know that we were thinking about when we first thought about this topic, was did you feel like it offered anything to add to the storytelling experience?
Yeah, there's a couple of things in there that they tell a good story within the world. Okay, the built world of the Sword Coast and Faerun and all of the standard D&D tropes and characters. But they also do a number of things in the movie that you could easily attribute to there being a story master, a game master, if you will, sort of fixing problems as the party stumbles around and makes bad decisions, which, our players are wont to do at times.
Every group of players is wont to do.
Yeah. And they make some interesting decisions on how they're going to handle certain things in the story that I think it's been said by others that I've watched on the internet and listened to, and they've said it really well, and I'm going to repeat it here for the rest of you. They do make certain choices in how they present the story to the players and that thusly to the audience that I think we can all really benefit from.
Interesting. I'm interested to find out what those things are, Josh.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it.
Let's do it.
The movie, like, I don't want to go through the whole plot of the movie because I want you to see it.
Yes.
And I don't want to give like a ton of spoilers on this. That would be something we would have done had you actually, had any time to go and do this, which I'm not faulting you for. You don't have time.
How
You're busy.
How dare you suggest that I have no time with a 6-month-old baby and working to get a house in order before I move into it? How dare you, sir?
Yes. I will do the heavy lifting here then. That's fine. It's okay. No, I think what was really nice was the framing of the movie. They started out and it was very much, you are watching a D&D movie. They had a lot of name drops right off the bat. You get a lot of things from Dungeons and Dragons. So somebody that knows the story, knows the world, has run a module or been in a module, you're going to pick up things right away. They've got the Lord's Alliance, they've got the Harpers, they got Aarakocra, they got Baldur's Gate, Neverwinter. These are like common names, things that we all know. My wife picked up on some of these things, like Baldur's Gate. Isn't that game you play? Like, yeah, it's yes. And overall, they like really went into it, and I get it. It's this movie was produced by Hasbro, not necessarily Wizards of the Coast. I didn't see the Wizards of the Coast name on it. It'll probably be in there at the credits, and I'll go take another look when I get around to watching it again. But Hasbro was definitely out there. That was the big name at the front. And I could really see this as not so much a love letter to Dungeons and Dragons and its players, but first and foremost, an advertisement for, hey, look at this thing that we sell.
I mean, I guess that's true. You could always look at, that's the whole thing that makes movies super profitable is not the movie. It's being able to sell action figures and toys and stuff later on. And
books and and well, the thing is, if you're going to sell Dungeons and Dragons, you should probably be pretty accurate to the source material, because you don't want people running in thinking it's one thing and getting a completely different experience, right?
Yes. So I mean, again, I see the whole list. I'm sure you're going to go through all these here, but do you feel like it was hokey in the way that all these things were brought up, or do you feel like it was actually world establishing in terms of the contextualization of the movie?
About 50-50.
Okay.
Yeah. Some of them were in the story for valid reasons, and some of them were just there to like hang a lampshade on it.
Got it.
Just to make it so that you get the people sitting around watching this. They're like, they come from their D&D table, they come to the movie theater, and they're like, I know that one. And there's one, and I'm not going to like spoil a big part of the movie for you here because it has absolutely no purpose. But they are wandering through an area and they see intellect devourers, which look just like they do from the book. It is a 3D representation. You've got Chris Pine just sitting there, and there's an intellect devourer walking past him. And literally, that's all that happens. It just walks past. There's no fight. There's a little joke about them, being attracted to intelligent creatures, and they sort of ignore him. And that's it. That it has no bearing on the story. There are these things throughout the movie. Now, some of the big parts, like, the Lord's Alliance and the Harpers, those play a bigger deal. You're talking, Neverwinter and Lord Neverember. These are characters that are in the movie. And so they are bringing some of that to life, which looks really nice and plays really well. They've got the druids, they've got the barbarians, and the wizard sorcerer, I guess sorcerer. But they don't really go full on, talking about each individual skill or spell or level up or anything like that. So that's really nice. It keeps the story light. It doesn't delve too much into the mechanics of things, but still, gives that feeling.
Gives you
that
the surface level that there are distinct roles for people to play.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and that there's different groups you can be a part of, and that there's a lot of moving parts in any one of these worlds. So yeah. They do different classes and stuff like that. And they've got the different races, and they don't name drop them all, but they show them. They're like in the world. There's a scene with Tabaxi just in the background. It's like it's a montage. There's a Tabaxi thing going on, and they never say what that is. And if you know the story, if you know the world, you know what it is. If you don't know the world, you're like, there's cat people. So I feel
like in both cases you're kind of safe because that feels very fantasy realm in and of itself. So like if you know it, you know it. If you don't, it still makes sense contextually.
Yeah. No, it fits perfectly in there. Like you've got elves, you got dragonborn, you got these big bird people, the Aarakocra, and they do have a tiefling, and you're sort of like, what's going on there? And they just like briefly gloss over it. It is very good in that it establishes the world with a lot of the stuff, but then others are just name drops, just to be name drops, where they throw monsters in just because that's like their intellectual property and they want to show it off. So it very much is a giant advertisement. But they do a good job of it. So like,
as long as it was entertaining, that it works out, right?
You know what you're getting into. You're not going in there to be like, man, I was touched to my soul. No, it's a fun, exciting movie just to be, this is what Dungeons and Dragons could be like. And it's good.
Yeah, I'm guessing there wasn't like this greater metaphor behind everything. No, it's probably a pretty straightforward movie.
Well, yes. But they do a couple of things in the movie that I think are really good lessons for GMing.
Mm-hmm.
Very early on, they're going through backstories and stuff like that, and they're using the backstories to sort of set up the plot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great if you can, build your backstory into your game, if that's a thing you want to do. If you're going to be having, big epic or, a big cinematic game, having characters' backstories mean something and, resolve during the plot of the game. Beautiful. The next thing that happened was the characters have to go on a journey, and they're going to go to a number of different places. So instead of, walking through the entire journey, it's all montage. It is montage after montage when it talks about travel, and they just sort of get to places, and anything exciting happens. It's sort of like it cuts into the montage, something exciting happens, and then it goes back to montage because travel is awful.
Again, that's one that is a movie thing that you can see in any movie. Most movies don't express the travel portion of the journey. Typically it is you cut from scene to scene, which is a very standard thing that you should do. I mean, the only reason why you should put travel in there is if you wish to have, the only reason why you enact a scene is to have consequences. You do not have a scene where you're talking to somebody about what you want for breakfast just because you have a scene that you want to talk to somebody about what you want for breakfast. You can, but you should not linger too long. Okay, the scene starts to get smelly, like old gym socks. Okay?
Exactly, and that's the point. That's these parts of the story were inconsequential to the overall. You still have them as a montage. You let the players, or in this case, the audience, know what's going on, establish a scene, but you don't linger on it. You leave it up as this thing happened. Okay, let's get to the next place. And I think that was really well done. They do that in a couple of different places, and they make a couple of choices this way. There's a couple of times during the story that it really felt like somebody who knew D&D had worked on the story. You have a puzzle that the players are introduced to, and it's overly complicated. So they immediately fail it before they even get through the full instruction. And it's at this point that you can tell that the GM steps in and gives a plot device in order to bypass it. It is the players screwed this thing up so badly, let's just get past it anyway. And it literally becomes a MacGuffin that it works. It fits right nicely into, hey, the players screwed up, let's find a way past it. And there's a big payoff for that later on in the story, because much like players, these characters will take any dumb thing that the GM throws at them and then turns it right on its head later on to really mess with the whole story and come up with a solution that wasn't expected.
Again, yeah, without you divulging too much information, I kind of hear you dancing around these things here. But I feel like in a movie that always kind of seems to work. So the hand waviness of it, again, this is why you should learn from movies, and just as a general rule, you should learn from movies how things are done to move things along within the plot of a movie. Because fortunately, in a movie, you have the foresight of writing. You know what's going to happen next in the next scene. Your players are not unpredictable in a movie because they are scripted into it. You could say that maybe parts of this was ad-libbed and, yada, yada, but those are lines, less so than the actual actions of the scene itself. So, but again, the takeaway from that is more of, if you could give the characters in the movie a key that solves the puzzle, so when they inevitably screw up the puzzle, you can solve the puzzle. Like, the same thing can be applied into your game, which is, here is the solution to a puzzle because you all decide to break the puzzle and it's no longer working and you don't get another shot at it.
Yeah. And if you're going to give your characters some sort of magical item, understand that they will use it repeatedly to try and solve other puzzles that it was not intended for.
Yes, do not give your players the skeleton key.
No, because it will now be shoved into every lock everywhere, regardless. And this is what happens in the movie. And yes, it is a movie. It is written by people. They intend for these things. But they play it up in a way that really does a good job of feeling like,
Well, again, if there is heavy inspiration from somebody who had played D&D, that action then feels more like you playing the actual game, which is, great, I gave my players this thing that solved this one puzzle, and now they're using it everywhere.
Yeah. And they, in fact, do to try and solve this other thing. And they work out a whole whatever. And it's at that point that their solution to solve the thing, have you ever had that one game master that doesn't want you to do a thing a certain way? And so no matter what you say you're going to do, they come up with a reason why it doesn't work.
If you are listening to this podcast and you have not, if you've not done it as a game master, or if you have not had it done to you as a player in a game, then you have not gamed, sir.
Yes. This is a common thing. I do not recommend it. Find a way to like yes and your way into a more interesting story, or don't give them the skeleton key in the first place. But there is that part where they are using their magic item, and it doesn't work, and then it doesn't work, and then it doesn't work the way they want it to. So some of them go off and do a different plan, while one of them just stubbornly tries to make the first plan work repeatedly. And this leads into the next part. Don't split the party. Don't split the party.
Don't split the party. This is the there are very few times in which you would ever want to split the party. I feel like as a GM, you want it to organically happen on accident. You don't want it to be a purposeful thing where you give your players reasons to split the party. If you give your players reasons to split the party, they will do it because it's logical and it makes sense. You want your players to do it sort of out of a, like, if you want them to do it, you present them a situation in which they must do it. Otherwise, do everything you can to not split up your party. It just makes the game harder to storytell, and then two, it always turns out bad for the players. Now, for you as a GM, if you want to kill your players, it's a great way to kill your players. But if you don't want to kill your players and you want your game to move along like a well-oiled machine, don't split your party.
Yeah. So when the party inevitably does split, they are all immediately captured, whatnot, and then returned into a single party unit so that they can continue with the story. While I don't appreciate, the instant nature of things as they were in this, I think it fits really well in if your party is insisting on splitting up and it's not a good idea, find a way to get them all back together. Even if it puts them in a worse situation, at least they're together.
I mean, yes, that's again, make reasons for your players to stay together. Make less reasons for your players to split up. Unless, again, you want to kill your players off. And that's the reason why you would split your party.
Yeah. I'm trying to think other things I can talk about with this movie without like giving you plot.
Just talk about the damn movie, Josh. Okay, this is the likelihood that I'm actually going to see this sometime this decade.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of things that I really enjoyed. I liked the setting. I liked the dialogue was good. The actors felt real in their roles. And the storyline moved along at a decent pace. It's 2 hours, but it didn't feel like slow or boring. There were some nitpicky D&D things. Okay. The characters had specific classes. Right. Chris Pine was supposed to be a bard, but as a bard, he did no bard stuff.
I'm Josh, and I'm not happy with the way the bard was portrayed in this D&D movie.
Yeah, I don't play bards because they suck. No, because I don't. I haven't gotten around to it. I thought I get it. The bard never casts spells in the movie. Bards typically in D&D are a half-casting class. They, do a little this, they do a little that, and they do, have a bunch of support spells. And I get not doing that in here because they have a sorcerer magic user that's specifically for sorcerer magic user. They also have a druid, and the druid never casts any spells, but the druid does do the wild shape. Like, doesn't do wild shape the way it is in the book. They just like constantly flip between shapes, but like whatever.
The problem is that if you have all of these, so the problem with 5th Ed is that everything has magic.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And like that's like the biggest gripe about Fifth Ed is that everybody has magic. Your fighter has magic. Your barbarian has magic. Everybody has magic. Okay.
Yeah.
So if everybody's casting spells, there is no delineation between the classes at that point, and it's hard for you to understand that without understanding what Fifth Ed is.
Yeah. Well, and also, if everybody's got spells, what's the purpose of the sorcerer?
Yeah.
And so, then the sorcerer can cast better spells or more often? Or what's the difference between a sorcerer and a wizard? Or why does the druid get to cast these sort of spells, but it's the same spells as the sorcerer? It makes sense on a tabletop. On a movie, you'd spend too much time explaining the little nitpicky stuff. So find the core part of the class that makes them different and focus on that. The barbarian is a great fighter. The bard is the face of the party and inspires people. The sorcerer casts the spells. The druid makes the shape changey. The paladin just makes everybody upset with his moralistic whining. So yeah, that is the core of those classes.
Yes. And so if that's what you're going to portray on screen, you aren't going to be like, well, the paladin can actually cast these spells as well, and he's got 3 spell slots today, so he can.
He used lay on hands too many times. He does not have that many lay on hands points to use in this combat encounter. No. Yeah. Yes. You could be really nitpicky and complain about all the different bits and pieces. But again, this is a movie. It's supposed to be sort of showcasing things, not giving you the exact how-to. Like, they don't stop in the middle of the fight and like, okay, let's roll for an attack now. They just go and do stuff.
Yeah, the movie doesn't flow if you have to explain why your bard can also cast fireball. So,
yeah. And so they kept the core of things, the basics, but they didn't really go and this is 5th Ed or this is 3.5 or we're showcasing one D&D. No, they just like, these are D&D concepts in a D&D world. You recognize all the names, you recognize all this, the little bits and pieces, but let's not get bogged down in the weeds on this one. And I think that'll work really well long term. This will be a movie you can come back to in 15, 20 years and be like, it's all still D&D, because they're not going to change the core parts. Bards are not going to be, bards never play music. Bards are barbarians now.
Barbarians.
It's a thing. Yeah. Trying to think. They have, I'm just going through the plot. Yeah, it really did feel like a real campaign. They had like a story structure that really organically moved from scene to scene. But it's a movie. They're supposed to do that. That's why you write a movie. That's why you pay people to write movies.
Yeah.
In paying attention to the structure of a movie or a hero's journey or whatever it is, will make your games more heroic, more epic, or just like make more sense. The characters did have depth to them. They had characteristics that really worked well with each other. Once again, that's good writing, but it's a good idea to, if you are playing a game, to give your character flaws or foibles, or just have them interact in a way that seems natural and organic. It makes your stories seem more interesting. The characters did make smart choices. They did make dumb choices, because people do. And that makes good writing.
Yes, you have to have flaws in your characters. Same. That's the reason why. It's the reason why real characters in D&D and any role playing game are good because you have flaws to them, and that's what makes good characters on screen is because they have flaws to them. You don't want perfect people walking around and doing stuff because there's no relatability to somebody who's perfect. You go, oh, that guy is a little slow like me, or like he doesn't solve puzzles well like me, or he doesn't play the lute very well like me, or
I think the other thing that this movie did really well also was that we can take away is that each one of the characters had motivation. It didn't need to be complicated. It didn't need to be, world ending or like, I've got to save all the people because something. My great grandfather.
From a village where people died, and now I must save all the people.
No, it doesn't have to be complicated. They had motivation. They followed their motivation. They got their motivation. It was a through line. Some of it was big. Some of it was like, I want to do this thing for, family or, because it feels right because I screwed up so badly. But others are just like, because, yeah, sure, let's do it.
Yeah, be careful about this is a very good point about motivation. Be careful about heavy motivation stuff in any game. This is a lesson learned that you can get from a movie like this or any other movie or any game in general. If your player's motivation is so heavily driven by they worked for this organization and the organization betrayed them and murdered everybody they knew. Like, your motivation is so one piece dynamic sort of thing. Like, I've seen so many people write out background stories that are like these epic tales of like what happened in the past. And I got to the end of it and I just remember looking at somebody and I'm like, so what's their motivation now?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you wrapped everything up in this story. Like, so now that they've wrapped up these loose ends, like, what are they trying to do?
Yeah. Your backstory should be, like, these terrible things may have happened to me and I'm trying to figure it out. Or it could be something as simple as, I don't want to work on the farm anymore. And I don't got any money, so I'm going to go, try my hand as a sellsword. It doesn't have to be complicated. It could be, there's a girl in town I like, and she won't give me the time of day because I don't have enough money. So I got to make some cash.
That's perfectly good motivation. I mean, again, just something to get you moving out the door. Like, why do you get up? Why do you adventure every morning? It's because of this reason or because of that. It doesn't have to be the necromancer came to my village and they burned down everything and murdered everyone and I have no one left in my life. And like,
yeah. And what happens if that character dies? If you got a player death in the game and it's the one whose entire backstory is tied into your story, now what's the motivation for the rest of your party?
Will they carry out his legacy? Will they carry out his will? You tell me, Josh.
No.
Also, you don't ever want to put backgrounds. Again, I don't want to turn this into a lecture about backgrounds. You don't ever want to tie your entire story into one player.
No.
Maybe a little bit of foreshadowing there.
That's part of this also, is they did tie it into most of the characters. Yeah. Most of them, not all of them, just most of them. And then the last thing that's, we've talked about this before on this podcast, and I will continue to harp on it, is they gave each one of the characters a big moment, a place to shine.
A spotlight?
A spotlight, if you will. Something that, while they worked with each other, there was cooperation. There was moments where this person is standing out above and beyond and helping the team. And it was both, a teamwork moment and a spotlight moment. So I think those were very good. And I think you should try and incorporate those into your game because your players feel better when they feel like they're important, and their team members feel better about that player when the important thing that they're doing helps everybody.
Yeah, you want everybody at your table. Just like in a movie, it helps highlight in a movie, it's highlighting character specialties, and it's much easier to do it because in a movie, you know the gaps in which they need to cover, and so you can give everyone their spotlight moment in a movie and make them feel important. But in a game, it's extra important to do that, which is trying to give everybody their place to shine. Again, that's why a session 0 is so important, all that sort of stuff, to be able to get your players cohesion to say, these are the places that you do not cover well, and this is what you do really well, and that's why you are a guy who goes and talks to people, or that's why you are a guy who goes and steers the carriage or something, or you always find us places to eat, like whatever it might be. Make sure that somebody has a place to stand out within the story. I'm giving you dumb ones, but you can use actual ones, which are like, how do you make them integral to the story? Like, and how do you make them integral to making the success of the party, work? So that's that.
Yeah.
I think that's all he got to say about that. So.
You don't really need to say more. I've recommended watching movies before because it helps you figure out how you're going to tell stories, or even cribbing notes from stories, because it's great. And I think this is a really good one to watch because you don't need to crib notes on the story itself. That's fine. But how they put it together, I think, following some of those directions might get you a better game. You might even level up your gaming.
Oh. Well, Josh, I totally screwed up your thunder because you wanted to talk all about the plot of this movie and dive deep into it here. But you have anything else that you took away from the movie? Anything else you want to add to this?
No, I think we covered it pretty good. I am going to go and watch it again after this.
And then be like, this was the best movie ever.
Or I'd be like, oh my God, I spent money on this? What the hell?
Well, no, maybe I'll find the time to pick up your digital copy from you and borrow it sometime and take a look at it. So
yeah, sure. We can figure that out.
Yeah. Anyways, that's going to wrap us up for this week. So if you saw the D&D movie, what were your thoughts on it? Do you feel like it was a good representation of the game? Was it an ad for Hasbro? I don't know. You tell me. Do you feel like there were lessons that you were able to take away from it? All that. What were your thoughts overall? levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com or facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. Also, we are on YouTube, so smash the like button there. Otherwise, subscribe to the podcast, review it, recommend it to a friend. All those good things to help the podcast get more exposure and be more searchable. And that's going to wrap us up for the week. So for Josh, I'm Aaron. Have a great week, everyone.
Bye.